It's weird, man. For a brief period of time yesterday, every single playoff series in the West was tied 2-2, and every single series in the East was 3-1. That did not last too long because the Dallas Stars then ended up playing off against the Colorado Avalanche, and they won quite handily, I would say. They now have a 3-2 lead over the Avs, but for a brief moment, we did have ourselves this screenshot that was quite humorous in the hockey community. 2-2, 2-2, 2-2 in the West, 3-1, 1-3, 3-1, 3-1 in the East. But I wanted to talk about two of the Canadian teams that are down there under a 3-1 deficit. Because when it comes to the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens, both of these teams are down 3-1 in their series, and I wanted to talk about the odds. I wanted to get into some of the numbers, some of the extra conversation, and just throw it out there. Are these teams able to come back? I know there are two other series at 3-1 that we can talk about as well, but honestly, if I had to choose a team to come back from down 3-1 between Ottawa, Montreal, New Jersey, and Tampa, I would probably say Tampa has the best chance of doing so just because it is Tampa. They're proven winners. They know how to win. They are playing off against the reigning defending undisputed Stanley Cup champion of the world, but still, I think Tampa has just more of an X factor and edge to be able to win 3 games in a row versus Ottawa, versus Montreal, versus New Jersey in their respective series. In fact, if you go over to moneypuck.com, they actually do have Tampa as the highest odds team to win and make the second round. They have them at 12.5%. The Ottawa Senators are down there at 8.8%, the Devils are at 8.1%, and the Montreal Canadiens have a 7.2% chance. So this is pretty tight, but I wanted to focus on the Canadian teams down there, Ottawa and Montreal, because of a segment that was brought up on TSN yesterday. You see, this was talked about by Jay Onraid, and they had the FanDuel guy go on there and make a guest appearance on the show, and this is what the odds are for Montreal and Ottawa to come back in their series. Ottawa has a plus 890 to win over Toronto, and Montreal has a plus 1,000 to win over Washington. So ultimately, the folks on FanDuel, the betting odds people, are projecting somewhat similar odds to Montreal and Ottawa. They have Ottawa having a slightly higher chance of beating the Leafs than the Canadiens do in beating the Capitals. Now, in totality, you can make the argument that that is kind of ridiculous. I mean, the Ottawa Senators were down 3-0, and the Montreal Canadiens were down 2-1, and eventually 3-1. It should be more difficult to come back from down 3-0, right? Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of these odds and the way that they're calculated, they don't necessarily think about it in the whole picture. It's like, hey, you were down 3-0 and then you won 4 straight to win. It's not really looking at it like that. It's more like, okay, the series right now is 3-1. Right now, Montreal has a 3-1 deficit. Right now, Ottawa has a 3-1 deficit. Who is more likely to win? And really, when you think about the caliber of teams and just the tightness of the games, I do think it's probably more likely that Ottawa has a better shot of beating Toronto over Montreal and Washington. But that's not to discredit the Habs at all. You see, Montreal is in a spot where they did have themselves a decent showing against the Washington Capitals in the games that they lost. They did get outplayed at certain moments. They were heavily disadvantaged at others, but they still were able to find a way to hang in there. And aside from the final empty net goals scored by Washington on Sunday, that hockey game was really close, and the Habs, had they not taken all those penalties, had they not been forced to go down in the 5-on-3, they might have had a better shot of winning it. And guess what? They still had those penalties in the 5-on-3, and they still had the 2-1 lead in game number 4. It was a pretty good showcase. They just don't have the experience to close it all out and seal the deal with a dub. That's not a bad thing. This Montreal Canadiens squad, the first power play unit is all guys under 25. So there is a lot of learning room for this team to learn what it takes to be an NHL playoff caliber team, to understand what separates the best from the rest, and just to learn what level of mental fortitude and composure you need to win series and win games in the playoffs. For Ottawa, I do think that the series has been a lot tighter with Toronto versus Montreal, Washington, and it's very easy to go out there and say that. I mean, more of the games in Ottawa, Toronto were overtime losses for the Sens. Literally 1-2 shots away. They could have been right in it. They were down 3-0, and the folks were going out there and saying, yeah, I don't really know if this team should have been down 3-0 in the first place from the way they've been playing. It's been a super tight series, and I don't think anybody is going to go out there and discredit the Ottawa Senators based off their performance so far. 2 straight overtime games, 3-2. That could totally have gone a different way if a bounce or a rebound or a pass was just a centimeter or 2 off. Hockey is an unpredictable game of inches, after all. That's all there really is to it. But ultimately, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. About the betting odds, first and foremost, will you be placing any sort of a bet, by the way, not sponsored, would you be placing any sort of a bet on Montreal or Ottawa? Do you want to get those plus 890 or plus 1,000 odds on your $5 or whatever? Do you think it's a reasonable risk? Of course, I'm not a gambling man, and I'm not sponsoring any gambling companies right here, but I do think the odds being displayed are interesting enough to talk about. Also, for MoneyPuck.com, for them listing Montreal and Ottawa at a 7.2 and 8.8% chance of coming back. What are your thoughts on those numbers? Do you think Tampa does have the best chance of coming back in this 3-1 deficit that they have compared to New Jersey, Ottawa, and Montreal? They have the highest odds on MoneyPuck. We can talk about Colorado a little bit later. I definitely do want to dive into some of these central teams and the superstar players that are underperforming. But for now, what are your thoughts? Montreal come back against Washington? Ottawa come back against Toronto? Obviously, for the memes, everybody would love to see Toronto fumble away a 3-0 series lead and lose. We already saw Montreal beat Toronto after being down 3-1 in the first round in 2021. So a little bit of deja vu for both sides here. Toronto is up 3-1 and Montreal is down 3-1. Separate series, I know, but back in 2021, those two stories combined and made for an extremely entertaining Montreal Canadiens comeback win. Can the Ottawa Senators pull off the impossible to a greater extent by coming back from down 3-0? Let me know your thoughts as to whether or not Toronto is going to choke this up. I honestly don't see Craig Berube allowing his team to do that, but we'll see. If there's any team that's going to go out there and fumble it, it's Toronto. But do you think the Sens do have a higher chance of beating the Toronto Maple Leafs than the Canadiens have a chance at beating the Capitals? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.